All right. Here we go. Hey, everybody. Let me do that again. Hey, everybody. This is Gene Jensen, and welcome to my live hangout. Tonight we are going to talk about fall fishing because I am sick and tired of summer fishing. We still got 80, 90 degree water temperatures here in Georgia, so I figured I'd talk about what's coming up and try to get myself in a good mood. I've been in a funk for about. Ask my wife. She says she thinks I've been depressed for the last month and a half. So. Let's see. She was ready to call a doctor on me. All right. Let's see. Fall fishing. It's what we all hope for, everybody except for the deer hunters. It's because of fall fishing I kind of slowed down my deer hunting the last couple of years. What are some of the baits you guys use in the fall? Anyone? I'm going to make fun of you if you don't answer.
I bought a square bill.
I like soft plastic.
Soft plastic, square bill crankbait. What else?
Jigs. Definitely.
Yeah.
Rattle trap.
Yep, jigs and rattle traps. Okay, so we've got two moving baits and two baits that you pitch, cast, and drag on the bottom. Jig and a soft plastic, and then a crankbait and a what else? And a lipless crankbait and a square bill. So, and those are basically what I like to throw. I'll throw a spinnerbait in the middle in that mix, stuff like that. But fall is pretty neat. Hold on, I got somebody with some background noise. I can't figure out who it is. Somebody talking in the background of somebody's.
Behind like this little space that has.
All right, who's talking?
And in that space, his son made a.
I think it's Bill.
It's Bill. You can see the little green.
Yeah, I was trying to see. Oh, there it is. All right, that works. All right, here we go. And so, what I like about fall is that it's the feed up. I mean, everybody talks about the bass go up and they gorge themselves, but it's not like a switch. They don't just flip a switch and the bass start eating like mad. It's a gradual thing. And the first thing I want to talk about is what are they feeding on? What's your bait fish in your lake? And that's what you've got to determine. Is you've got to determine the types of bait fish that are in your lakes. Ponds don't have shad. A lot of northern lakes don't have shad. Shad don't last when the water gets into the 30s. They die off. So you've got to sit down and determine what the bass are going to be feeding on. Then, just like I do any other time of the year, you go look for the bait fish. And when you find the food, you're going to find the bass in numbers because they're coming up and they're going to feed. So let's start off talking about small ponds. There's no migration. Basically, the bluegill need to eat, get ready for the summertime or to the wintertime. The crawfish need to eat. Everything in that lake needs to eat to get ready for summer or for winter. I'm gonna say summer about a dozen times before I get this right. To get ready for the wintertime. So what's going on? The bass are going to be in there feeding on them. So where are the bluegill feeding? They're going to be feeding in the grass. They're going to be feeding. Bluegill eat grass shrimp. They eat small fish. They eat things off of rocks and stuff like that. So find the bluegill. Find the crawfish. Crawfish like hard bottoms. They like rock. They'll get into the grass and eat the stuff that's in the grass. A lot of little organisms live in that grass. And so on small ponds, I'm just looking for places where bluegill hide. I'm looking for places where crawfish will be. And I'm just covering as much water as I can as fast as I can. Then when I get a bite, that tells me that that area is favorable for some reason. So I'm going to go and I'm going to look a whole bunch of other places, or a whole bunch of small spots in that general area, and see if I can't get any more bites. The biggest thing is when you're covering water, you don't. How can I put this? You don't sit there and saturate an area with your bait. If you don't get bit in 4, 5 to 10 casts, keep moving until you get bit, because you'll catch a very active fish. You're more likely to catch a very active fish in the fall, quickly, and be able to figure the fish out pretty quick. But if there's no fish there, they're not going to bite. So I am throwing a spinner bait, I am throwing a crankbait, I'm throwing a lipless crankbait, I'm working a jig fast, I'm working a soft plastic fast, I'm working everything I'm throwing, I'm burning the bank and until I get bit. And then I put the brakes on and I very meticulously work that area out. And I'm not necessarily trying to match the hatch. I don't want to catch a bluegill and say, okay, it's this color, I'm going to pull out this crankbait because it's exactly like this bluegill. Those bass, because you're moving so fast, they don't have a chance to figure out exactly what that bait is. And I want to try to get it in front of their nose real quick and get it away from them, or get it in front of their nose, shake it a few times, move it, and get them to chase it, because they're going to be in a chasing mood if they're feeding. So that's kind of my mindset as I'm going through small ponds or even big ponds or big lakes, is I'm moving fast until I get bit. Hit the brakes, go fishing. And it doesn't take long for, if you're in the right area, it doesn't take long for a bass to bite. So lose confidence quick if you're not getting bit is my biggest suggestion. Is just flat out, if you don't get bit in 5 or 6 casts, move. So let's talk about soft plastics. What soft plastics would you guys use in, say, a small farm pond?
Baby brush hog.
Okay, baby brush hog or creature bait. Looks kind of like a crawfish. Can also mimic a bluegill because of the action. Okay, what else?
Maybe a small beaver.
Small beaver. Drew, what'd you say?
Ultra 5-speed craw.
Okay, another one with the vibration with the crawfish. You know, there's something I learned here recently. I was reading an article about crawfish color. Crawfish, when they're eating stuff out of the grass, pick up a little bit of, particles of the grass itself, and those particles turn the crawfish a red color. Not all of the crawfish, but make the crawfish red. So this fall, when I'm fishing in the grass, I'm going to put some red on my crawfish, or I'm going to try to use something with some red. If they're not in the grass, there's going to be a little bit of orange in them, and maybe a little black and blue. And if you're punching mats, you want to, you get that grass matted up at the top, you got a canopy up the top, and there's lots of tunnels and it's dark spaces underneath. Punch something that's black and blue, or green pumpkin. But don't punch. The water may be clear out here, but consider it low light conditions under the grass. So punch things through the grass that are that color. So Ultravibe Speed Craw is a great example of a good bait to punch grass. One of the tricks I do with that one, though, when I'm punching, is I clip the little legs that are on the side of it off. So all I have is the main body and the 2 little claws.
Okay.
And those little legs will actually make it a little bit more difficult to punch through thick grass. So if you pinch all those off, it goes to the grass a whole lot easier. So one of those little tricks that I do, every time. So let me think what else. I'm thinking off the top of my head because I wasn't prepared to go this direction.
How about a swim bait?
A swim bait is good if you're working edges. To me, it'd be just like any moving bait, a spinner bait, a rattle trap. Rattle traps are the one you hear the most of, are lipless crankbaits. But yes, swim baits. I guess an A rig.
So what water temperatures are you thinking about right now?
Okay, when this is the way I see it, is that when the air temperatures stay below lower than the water temperature, of course the water's going to start to cool off, right? So as soon as that water starts to cool off, everything senses that, and everything starts to get ready for fall. And it's, like I said, it's not a switch, it's a gradual thing. And so I like to see 70 around here. I like to see high 70s at least, because that lets me know that it's on its way down. Because right now we're looking between, in the morning it'll be 83 degree water temperatures. In the afternoon you'll see all the way up to 93. And so When it gets down into the 70s, that's when I'm happy. So I would have to say a 10-degree drop of whatever your water temperature is now. You can probably say that it's starting to get into fall. You know, that they're recognizing it, and they're getting up and they're getting ready to feed. My favorite time of the fall to fish is late fall. You know, because around here we have shad lakes, and the shad get all the way to the back of the creeks, and you're fishing a spinnerbait in just enough water to get your trolling motor down there. You know, if you're not kicking up mud, you're fishing too deep. And it's run and gun. You're burning that spinnerbait and not hitting everything in the back of the creek, sticks, stick-ups, brush, ripping it out of the grass. You're fishing what I call full contact. And just trying to tear up everything you can and get bit. And it's all reaction strike stuff. I love it. Absolutely love it when they get back there. But that's later in the fall. With that said, let's talk about large reservoirs with shad in them, because that's what I know the best. That's what I fish, you know, most of the time anyway. Is when it starts to cool off. Let's say a 10-degree drop, just for discussion purposes. The first place I go looking is in the mouth of major creeks in the lakes, and in the mouths you'll start to see more and more bunches of bait fish or shad in those mouths, and they're starting their migration towards the back of the creek. And the thing that one of the rules of thumb, or one of the things we talk about, are we divide the creeks up into thirds. And I've said this in a couple of my videos. You got the first third, the middle third, and the back third. So in the beginning of the fall feed up, the shad move into the first third of the creek, and they're working back as the water cools and cools and cools. They're working their way back to the back of the creek. I don't know why they move to the backs of the creeks. I don't know if there's more food back there. There has to be something, you know, genetically that drives them, or something that back there. But once they move back there, the bass and every other fish that feeds on them will follow them towards the back. So I'm going to start off fishing the mouths. I'm going to look for long points that stick way out, or humps in the mouths, something that'll get the bass to a point where they can funnel the fish either between them and the surface, or funnel the fish between them and a piece of structure, a piece of cover. And so I'm gonna look for those places: humps, points, creek channels that swing up against the side of a point. Is an ideal spot, because those shad will follow that creek channel, and they'll run right up along that point, and those bass like to sit on that steep side. And that's when I'm dragging a jig, that's when I'm dragging a Carolina rig, and that's when I'm throwing a deep diving crankbait, or yo-yoing a rattle trap or something. Anything that I can get down to whatever depth it is. It's not going to be too deep depending on the lake. You know, right now our bass are at 43 feet deep yesterday, is what they were holding at. But I expect once the water temperature starts cooling off, that thermocline is going to come up, and it's going to get real shallow. So, and the bass will follow and get shallow. Any questions so far? I'm just rambling on. So.
Yeah, Gene. I fish a lot of really, really weedy ponds, and jig fishing is just like impossible, because every time you're pulling up weeds, right? So, do you think I should throw maybe a shallow running crankbait or lipless crankbait up against the weed edge?
Yeah, one of the things you can do, is it matted weeds, or is it subsurface?
Oh, it's subsurface.
Does it ever mat out?
No, I don't
No,
think so.
it's always in the bottom. Okay, what you got to do is you got to figure out how deep that grass is, and two good baits. A rattle trap is an excellent grass bait if it's subsurface.
I got this one color I picked up. It's like black and red, right? And I got this other one. It was like a bright, like shiny blue, and it fades to more of like a silver on the body.
Yep.
It was like, I think it's like a 7/8 ounce size.
That's a little heavy.
Yeah.
Look for quarter ounce and half ounce, because they're easier to control the depth. You'll find that 7/8 ounce will drop and hit the bottom, and before you even know it, you have grass in it. But a good thing with a rattle trap is when you get it hung in the grass, if you real quick drop it to a slack line and give it one quick heavy pop, it'll rip out of that grass. But it also depends on what type of grass it is. There are some types of grass that just you can't rip off. But the key is to find your depth and figure out how to crank that crankbait or that rattle trap to where it's just ticking the top of that grass without getting hung up. and you'll find that do you know what types of grass it is?
I think, I took a picture of it. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if you'll be able to see this. I'll show you.
Well,
But
I'll ask you a question. Does it have a lot of little it's like fans on it when it's underwater? Does it look like
it looks like coontail.
Okay, coontail, but do the leaves fan out like this?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, you got milfoil is what that is. Eurasian milfoil.
Okay.
And that's harder to rip off, but it can be done with a good pop. But the thing about milfoil is it's kind of bushy, and it has little shoots that stick up a little further, and those are the ones you want to tick with your crankbait. But yeah, since you got subsurface, man, you can do a whole lot with that, especially with moving baits, spinner baits, crankbaits, and stuff like that. Biggest thing is just don't get them to where they dive into that grass. You want to fish right on the top of it. Another thing is one of the things I forgot to mention, which is one of my favorite things to do, is find the live grass. What happens in the fall when it starts to cool off, your grass starts to die off. And the more and more the grass dies off, the better and better the fishing is, because it concentrates the fish into that grass, into the live grass. So, for instance, the day I caught my personal best, my 9.98 out of the grass, I spent 3 days before that tournament dragging a 1-ounce jig around and pulling up the grass and looking at it. I didn't want to catch a fish those 3 days. I knew because it was early September actually then, and it just so happens the grass was dying off then for some reason. But I found 3 spots of grass in the back of this creek arm, and by just dragging that jig and pulling it up and looking at the grass, and when I found the green grass, that's where I knew I was going to fish on tournament day. And I went over there with a Mojo rig, and we ended up with 25 and some odd and some change with that 10-pound kicker, that 998, a 6, and some other stuff. But
you said the temperature where you are now, it's like 70s, 80s? Right?
Right now we're in the high 80s.
Okay, because right now I'm at 54, right?
Oh,
would you say that like the bass are much more active here than they are where you live now?
Yeah, I'd say, well, at about 50, that's when you start to get into that winter time. Your fall is like 2 weeks long, though, up there.
Oh yeah, no, our fall is really quick, and then
yeah, you go from summer to fall real fast. But so you're looking at between summer and when the ice comes in is basically what your window is.
Yeah, but like this is like 9 o'clock, right? But during the day, it's something like maybe 60s, right?
Yeah, that's still really cold for me, man. I don't even swim in that cold temperature. But yeah, just the biggest thing for you is just fish baits that work that grass good, and without getting hung up is all you. It's about fishing efficiently, and you'll catch them. I mean, if they're going to feed up until ice comes in, and then they'll get funky just before the ice comes in, and then you're stuck with digging holes in the ice.
Just last week I was out fishing on this dock, right? Because I don't have a boat, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's this small pond, and I saw maybe a 4 or 5 pound bass. And like I would have flipped the Senko black with a blue flake, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like all the time, like where I fished, like they would come up to it and notice it, and they would just ignore it right away. And all the time, the time.
Yep, and welcome to fishing. I used to have one of those underwater cameras you drop down. Yeah. I'd drop it down into a school of bass and drop my drop shot down in there, shake the drop shot, and look at all the bass come up and look at it and swim away. And look at it and swim away. And I was using like 6-pound test fluorocarbon, so I knew they didn't see the line. They just saw the worm. And I sold it about 2 weeks after I got it. I was like, I don't really care. I don't want to know how many fish look at it. And the biggest thing about shallow bass, if you can see them, they've already seen you. So so they know there's something ain't right. So the biggest thing is just be stealthy. But Chris, man, how are you? Oh, he still hasn't gotten in good.
I'm good.
Yeah, Chris, you got a real bad lag, Chris. Give it about 2 minutes; it'll catch up. So any other questions?
Hey, so Gene, when you're up here, I can run the banks probably right now. 12, 15 foot and still cast on up to the banks and on shore. I'm using in the fall and all, the spinner bait for search bait. It's 5/8 too heavy size to go for that. Should I downsize or?
How does it feel to you when you cast it? Does it feel too heavy?
Well, see, I like it because I can get it up on the bank and rip it through all the grass and cover. But
Yeah,
I don't know if it's sinking down too far, if it'll drop down too far, or.
It's hard to say. For me, it's all about am I fishing that spot or that area efficiently, or am I screwing up? Am I getting it hung in the weeds too much? For instance, this morning, I was throwing a half-ounce buzz bait, and I was throwing it almost all the way to the bank, and instantly clicking clicking the reel and starting to reel as fast as I could to keep it from hitting the bottom, which was only about 3 inches under it once it hit the surface. So, every time I throw it up, and as fast as I could click it, it was still getting to the bottom and getting the muck off of the bottom hung onto the buzz bait. So I switched it to a lighter one just to keep it from falling so fast, and it was only had to fall that far to hit the bottom. And so it's more or less what can I fish that's going to fish that spot the best. It's not what the bass want until I figure out what type of a mood the bass are in. So if I'm throwing a spinnerbait looking for bass and they're whaling that spinnerbait, then I'm going to keep throwing that spinnerbait. But if I throw a spinnerbait looking for bass and I have one follow it, I know there's bass in the area, yay! And so I start digging in my box and experimenting. Do they want something on the bottom? Do they want something really slow? Do they want something really fast? Those are the two things I try first. I don't try moderate speeds very often. It's either really fast or really slow, and I try to figure out whether they want it on the bottom or up on the top, stuff like that. But once I've located a bass, I am pretty sure especially in the fall, I'm pretty sure there's other bass in that area.
How are you?
So anyway, let's see. Did I answer your question?
I've heard. I have been told.
There we go. I muted Black for a minute. So Black Bassin, cool. I like that name. Any other questions? I'm gonna go into crankbaits here in a minute.
Yay.
I heard somebody make a reference to swim baits earlier.
Yeah.
And I know at the first sign of a cool down, I struck a lot of the shad in my area, moved up over these shallow flats, and you can almost like hopscotch with them all the way to these creek mouths where you're talking about.
Wow.
Yeah. And I have a lot of luck throwing a swim bait right up underneath them. The small one, the KVD Perfect Plastics, swim baits, those real small ones.
Yeah, yeah.
And have a lot of luck with that. So if that helps anybody wondering about swim baits.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's the biggest thing I think would be, and I'm not very experienced with swim baits. I mean, paddle tails around here are about all we throw, and we throw them when the bluebacks are spawning early in the spring or right after the bass spawn. So I'm not really experienced with them in the fall. But the biggest thing would be match the size of the bait. I mean, because the bait's fairly small in the fall. Later in the fall they're pretty big. Let me unmute Black Bassin. Hold on a second. There we go. I muted you for it. That's all right. I muted you for a second. But the biggest thing for me, especially even with a rattle trap, I try to match the size. And also with a rattle trap, I have 3 different colors that I throw 90% of the time in the fall. That's black and chrome, blue and chrome, and black and gold. And so I'll try all 3 of those and try to determine, because that's especially in the shad lake, because you're moving it so fast, the bass just see it and it's gone, and they try to get, and you'd be amazed at how fast a bass can swim. I mean, they'll catch up to those high-speed reels. So they see it and they're going to grab it before it gets away from them, before they realize exactly what it is. And so yeah. Well, that's why I say either really fast or really slow. One of my favorite late summer, early fall patterns is to throw a rattle trap over top of the grass. And before a 7-to-1 gear ratio came out, all we had were the 6-3 to 1s or 6-2 to 1, 6-3 to 1s. I would throw it out, let it sink down to depth, and hold the rod up really high and reel it as fast as I could. I mean, as fast as I could reel, and that's the only time I would get bit. And it was a 3/4 ounce rattle trap in a bluegill pattern is what it was. But I mean, as fast as I could reel it back in, and those bass were whaling it. I'm talking 2, 3, 4 pounders. And so, that was. And that same sort of deal. It was a grass flat. It was a huge flat that had a bunch of grass on it with a little stalks and stems sticking up, and we were just ticking the tops of those stems. So, but let's see, swim baits. For me, if I think a swim bait would work, I would rather throw a crankbait because that's just the way I am. A lot easier to tie on. Doesn't get hung up. For me, it doesn't get hung up as much, and I can control the depth. But let me think. Let me look through this real quick. Already went through most of this. Break points, channels. Yep. I haven't even read my notes. These are notes from a video that I was going to do last year. But I pretty much covered most of it. So we're let's go back to the main lakes. We're in the first third of the creek for the first part. Okay, and then they move back to the middle third, and the only reason why I'm saying thirds is because when we explain to each other where we're finding fish, we use the rule of thirds, and so they're in the middle third, and I'm still looking for points and little places where they can ambush the bait, and then they get into the back, and then they're really shallow, and like I said, that's my favorite time to fish because that's when the big ones get up and they're eating for the last little bit before the winter time and before they migrate back out to deep water, and because they're so shallow, they're so concentrated, and they're just fun to catch. And as much as I hate a spinnerbait, I love it that time of year because it is just it's you're burning it and just knocking, like I said, hitting everything you can to get a reaction strike out of these fish. And then when the water temperature gets down into the around here low 50s into the 40s, then you start to get into that wintertime pattern where they start to get lethargic, and that's when I get the jerk baits out, and then it's Christmas time around here about that time. Then I'm waiting for it to get really cold when they get concentrated down in the bottoms of ditches and things like that. But we'll talk about that another time. But let's see. You guys ain't got any, that's all I have for fall fishing, really. You guys got any questions about fall fishing?
Yeah, Gene. Could you discuss cold fronts and how does that affect fishing?
Cold fronts fronts in general, for me, it's either one way or the other. It either makes it worse or makes it better. But in the fall time, I find that an extended cold front, like what we're going through right now, we're going to have 4, 5, 6 days of cooler weather. It has a good thing. Bass in general don't like weather change. They like everything to be constant. So whether it's a cold front or a warm front or anything, if the weather changes dramatically, pressure change or anything else, they don't really like it. And so a cold front this time of year, I think it's more likely to be a good thing than a bad thing because it's cooling off the water, it's making them a little bit happier, a little bit more willing to eat, and stuff like that. So it's hard to determine this time of year, but it's either going to be one or the other thing. It's either going to be really good or really bad. And I'm one of those that if my line's not wet, I'm not catching fish, and I don't care what the water temperature is. I don't care what the barometric pressure, what the moon phase, or whether Jupiter's aligned with Saturn and stuff like that. If I'm not fishing, I'm not catching fish. So I'm not going to find an excuse to why I can't catch fish or an excuse why I need to stay on the couch. So, but cold front, it's funny. The guy I'm fishing with tomorrow morning, Bobby's been my fishing partner for probably 8 or 9 years now. And he's a preacher, so we fish either Mondays or Fridays. And he's probably one of the best sticks on my lake here. Actually, he's my mentor. He's the guy that got me serious about learning how to bass fish when as an adult. But anyway, so him and I have this running joke: is 90% of the time we go fishing, it's post-front conditions, and so we should be absolutely experts on post-front fish. And to this day, it's still it still leaves us shaking, scratching our heads all the time because we didn't catch fish or we had a horrible day. So I should be an expert at cold fronts or at post front conditions, but I don't think anybody is, because the bass will always react differently to those conditions. So anyway, I'm rambling, aren't I?
I've always had better luck right in front of a weather pattern moving in.
Oh yeah.
When the wind's moving in, I had that happen this week. As a matter of fact, my wife and I went. We snuck away from the kids and got off by ourselves and absolutely wore them out. But the conditions were overcast, wind was blowing. Found a great little tree to throw up underneath and just wore them out. I decided, okay, this is going to be great because I'm going to bring my son back here tomorrow and try the same thing. Went back the next day, thick glass conditions, stifling hot, not even a nibble.
Yep. I had that issue this morning and yesterday. Yesterday I whacked them on a buzzbait, and I would say whack them. I caught 10 in about, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours, but all 10 of them was before the sun came up or before the sun hit the water. And then I went back today, slick, calm, and that's what I love for buzzbait fishing. I love that slick, calm water where the bubbles that the buzzbait kicks up stay on the water for like an hour. And that's like ideal buzzbait conditions. And about 15 times I'd bring it, and right at the boat you'd see the swirl as the fish was swimming away. And so they were just following it. And no bites, none. And I got there a half hour earlier than I did yesterday, and didn't, and I basically for naught because I didn't catch anything.
And that was morning time?
Yeah, it was early this morning. And the only bass that I caught was on a spook. I actually took the buzzbait off, threw it in the floor of the boat, put a spook on because there were some white bass schooling around this one point. They were schooling out in the deep water, and I was trying to catch them. And I watched the bait fish come up on this shallow point. I'm talking probably 8 inches of water. They swam across these 8 inches of water, and I knew there was a fish chasing them because of the way they were swimming. And I threw right into them, and nothing. And so I went around the other side, and they had swam off. But as I threw into them, tried to catch him, and I was pulling it out, this bass, and I thought it was a white bass, came out, and it was putting a wake behind it about this high off the water and just tearing up those shad. So I went around the other side of the point, threw in there just to see what would happen, and it was about a 3.5 pounder that came up and just whaled my topwater bait. And got it on video, but I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I'll just put it on file. But it was a good fish, but that was the only fish I caught that day, and it wasn't on a buzzbait, and it was a reaction strike because he was chasing bait fish. So it was not really a pattern. It was more I was ready for that situation. So. Oh, and I challenged myself this morning. I took 1 rod, and I'll never do that again because I wished I'd have had a spook on and my buzzbait, because then I could reach down and grab my spook and catch fish. I must have retied like 15 times in 20 minutes just to change back and forth. But I had to put my boat in the shop this morning after I got done fishing, and I only took 1 rod, so I didn't have to empty my boat out. But let's see. Any more questions?
I got a question.
Yeah.
What do you think about fishing like crankbaits and heavy grass? Like the lake/pond I fish is, I wouldn't say the grass is just full. There's no room, no dirt. It's just straight grass, thick.
Straight grass. So it's a shallow lake?
It's a shallow. The deepest part is like 10 to 12 feet. It's about a 10-acre lake. So it's kind of a pond.
Is the grass topped out, or is it subsurface?
Just on the edges. On the edges, it seems like it's died out, and it's just topped out on the edges. But it's maybe 1.5 feet below the surface.
You could probably get away with like a really shallow diving crankbait. Then again, if you're getting it hung in the grass and you can't rip it out, it's pointless. Yeah, absolutely, you're wasting your time. And so, and like I said earlier, it's about fishing what you've got in front of you, fishing it effectively and efficiently. And if you get they've got those really shallow divers that dive about 1 foot deep or 1.5 feet deep, and then and if you still find your catch getting caught in the grass, then hold your rod tip up really high or change to a heavier line.
Is the grass popped out, or is it?
And I was hold on.
On the edges. On the edges, it seems like it's died out, and it's just topped out on the edges.
Let's find out who's There we go. Frank, I muted you first. Yeah, second. So or you can up your line, but I'd be fishing 15-pound line at least anyway, because you catch a bass, it takes you down that grass. You're going to need the meat of
Yeah.
that line to get it out of the grass. So
The minimum I use is 50-pound braid, because I've
Yeah.
broken off in 50-pound braid in that lake, because
Yep.
it just gets you in that grass. If you're not paying attention, it's gone.
yeah, you don't play around with them at all, and even as much as beefing up the hooks is what I would do too. If you've got big fish in that grass, you
Yeah.
know, I'd even go get either a heavier wire hook or a little bit go one size up. You know,
Okay.
and
That makes sense.
and at least one of them, make one of them one size up, because if you do go both of them one size up, they'll get hung together and it'll be pointless.
Yeah.
You know,
Cool.
So, and that's kind of a trick that I'll do. Or if with a rattle trap, I've got one video where I showed this, but I'll take the back treble off, and the rattle traps come with a size 4, I believe, hook on them, or most liftless crankbaits do. I up it to a size 1, one of them big monster treble hooks, and I take the back totally off, and that makes your rattle trap almost snag proof when you're working through wood. And it comes and it rips through grass a whole lot easier too. And you have that big hook in the back, so if a fish grabs it, it will get it'll get hooked most of the time. You hardly ever lose a fish that way. It can't gain leverage with that other hook to pop it loose.
Okay,
So,
cool.
Rattle
try
trap
that.
tricks 101.
Thank you.
What do you think about umbrella rigs?
I'm going to try them this year. I've got about 24 of them, I believe, and I haven't. For me, because of the way I am, and because I think because I teach all this stuff and I teach it as I go, a lot of my friends won't tell me what they're biting on until 3 or 4 months after. So I found out after this winter that everybody was whacking them on an A-rig. So, and I can't stand to fish them. I really can't. And so I'm going to force myself this winter to do them. This is actually a really cool one. It's by Shane's Baits, and it's a removable arm one. So when you break an arm off, because you have to bend them out and put them back in, stuff like that. You can actually unscrew it and pop the arms off and put new ones on, or you can change the configuration of them and all kinds of other stuff. Pretty cool little thing. This guy evidently fishes like the FLW tour or something, and he came up with this idea. But pretty neat little deal. I think this one was like $25, so it's not cheap. But
I used the smaller one that only had the 3 on it.
Yep, the 3-arm.
And it had a clear, almost white shad on it with the head and the hook. And I caught probably a pound right off the end of a boat ramp.
Oh, goodness.
And then I went around, to the left and to the right, and never had another strike on it.
And you know what? I hear that it's a better wintertime bait than anything.
It is.
I mean, monster stringers come from, down here in the south when we see our lakes don't get that hard stuff on it, so we fish them all winter long.
Well, I'm in Texas.
Okay, so yours barely get cold.
Yeah.
But get it down to depth and slowly reel it. And one thing I have learned about them, though, just studying and trying to learn as much as I can, is it is a steady paced rig. If you do a lot of starting and stopping, they'll get tangled up and stuff like that. You can do a little fluttering and things like that, but I found that the people I've talked to that are the most experienced with it, they have their best success when it's just steady retrieve. And another thing is that you want to make sure that the head of your of the rig isn't weighted. There's a bunch of them when they first started. Everybody started copying it. The problem is that a lot of them were making the heads out of lead, and that lead will cause it to sink like this instead of sink like this. And so when it sinks like this, all your baits get tangled up. So you want to make sure you get one that has a light head, so your baits will sink down this way, and it won't. And they're less likely to get tangled up. But and I'm not going to fish mine on braid. I'm going to fish mine on co-poly, just because I have a really bad habit of backlashing braid, and 65, 80-pound braid will pop on a backlash with a heavy bait on it anyway, and it'll break. And so I got $125 swim bait at the bottom of Gunnersville because of that. Custom painted by Dwayne Beatty. Sorry, Dwayne. But
I used to live in Alabama. I've fished all over the place over there.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Gunnerville is interesting.
Yep. I'm a fan of Pickwick, so.
Yeah.
Smallmouth.
Yep, Pickwick smallmouth. If I could pack up and move and go there right now, I sure would. I'd buy a house there and probably get divorced doing it, but I'd love that place. Oh man, but let's see. Let's keep. Yeah, man.
While we're talking about Aries, I think I was talking to you after the last hangout about the Strike King Titanium. When you say like an unweighted head, are you talking about similar to this one?
Yeah, it's a what do they call it? It's an epoxy head, is what it is. It's a two-part epoxy. Exactly what that is. What's that? It's a kind of a foam head. It's not lead. It's not tungsten. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what they're making most of them out of now. But like when they first started, people started copying them. They would just take a spinnerbait head mold and pour the spinnerbait head on the front of it. So, oops, I messed myself up. Any more questions? I'm going to go for.
I got one more question before we
leave.
Out here in California, there's supposed to be El Nino. Would you say that whole weather system is going to change the fishing pattern, or should I just stick with the same kind of pattern?
Just, what I would suggest, instead of, sticking with a quote-unquote pattern or a general idea of what baits to use during that period of time, is what I do is every day I go to a lake. I try not to fish history. I hate fishing history, and when I catch myself doing that, I'm having a bad day. And so because the bass move, and what I tell a lot of these young kids is that bass fishing is not like a video game. When you do this, then you get this result every time. When you do this, you get this result every time. And so with bass fishing, it is you have to go into it with a mindset, or at least I do, of it's a brand new day. What is the first thing I do? I figure out what they're eating, and I go look for what they're eating. I try to sit my butt right in the middle of their dinner table, and sit there and hold the food right up over top of their head, and get them to eat. Is what I'm trying to do. So I'm going to look for the bait fish that they're eating every day, and so if I'm not catching them one place, I'm going to go look another place. I'm going to try to find out and figure out. And then once I find their bait fish, then I'm going to start looking for places that are going to hold those bass. And I do this all the time. Wintertime, when they're down in the deep ditches, I'm going into a pocket, and if that pocket doesn't have bait fish in it, I'm turning around and I'm going right back out. If it has bait fish in it, then I'm going to go look for those deep ditches, and I'm going to try to fish those ditches. I may not see the bass because they may have their bellies on the bottom, but I'm going to go and fish those ditches and fish those deep spots pretty quickly and see if I get bit, or see if something happens, and then I'm going to slow down and figure it out from there. But it's all about their stomach, and whether you can fish what you've got in front of you efficiently with the bait. If I could teach any one thing, it would be that in this whole world is you fish a bait that's effective for your cover, and you find the food that the bass are eating, and you'll find the bass. At any time of the year. It's amazing that it actually works. But when I figured that out, I went from being zeroed, every 3 trips to catching at least one fish every trip I went out. So, but I tell you what, we've been doing this for 45 minutes. If you guys have been on for a while, if you don't have any questions or anything, bump off and there's a bunch of people that are waiting to get on. But if you have a question, hang up, stay on, and ask away. And that would be great, because I'm done talking about fall fishing. We're just going to do the chat session now. So.
Gene.
Yes, sir.
You throw your air rig on a. Do you have like a designated umbrella rig rod, or do you just use like a extra heavy swim bait rod?
I use the Duckett extra heavy. I want to say it's 7'10". Extra heavy. It's my punching rod. It's the one where I very rarely use it because my heavy is just as good around here with the hydrilla, but if I'm fishing like really thick stuff, I'm using it, and then it switches over to the umbrella rig pretty quick. So I love that rod. It's got enough flex in it to really sling an umbrella rig, but it's beefy.
Yeah. Have you ever had a problem with spro frogs filling it up with water too much?
Yes. I found that about 1 in 8 will fill up with water. I've probably owned about 50 of them, so I can safely say. So I can safely say that it's 1 in 8. But my trick is I take and I just because I have it, it's the Mega Strike fish attractant. That's the kind of the gel stuff. And when I absolutely need to do it, I'll just squeeze a little bit of that in that hole, and it'll clog that hole up for about 50 or 60 casts, and keep it from filling up. Unless a bass bites, and then it spits it out, and you have to do it again. But another thing, if I say if it fills up in within 8 casts, really what I would do if I was anybody is I'd take it back to the store and get another one. Tell them it doesn't work, it doesn't do what it's supposed to do, I want another one. And more than likely the next one you get, if you trade it in for the same thing, is not going to sink. So.
Well, my popper and the regular does it.
Yeah, oof. Man, there are baits, brands out there that don't sink, or that don't fill up with water, and I can't remember the brand names that don't. Nope, not even off the top of my head. I wouldn't even be able to think of it.
Have you seen the new one where the legs? I mean, it's not a spro, but where the legs kick.
Yep, I've seen that one.
Starts with an L.
Yeah, what do you think about that?
They look pretty cool. I haven't seen them in the water yet. So I haven't been fishing frogs in probably a year and a half, and I need to do a video about it. But that lake in North Carolina, that's the best frog lake I've ever fished in my life because it's all 5-pounders, and they're used to eating that fish food, so they're used to eating up, and so it makes for a great frog lake. But I haven't fished it but twice this year. So, but one of these days I'll get a good frog video out and actually do some teaching. I have frog videos, but they're all in that entertainment stuff that I used to do. So.
Well, I'll email Spro and see what they say.
Yeah, they're a good company. They're a bunch of good guys. They're based right here in Georgia, up in Cartersville, and there's some good guys. I've never heard anything bad about them not backing their product. So
yeah,
we'll see what they do. That's the biggest thing I always say on the forums and things like that is don't come on a forum and badmouth the company. Call them, give them a chance to stand behind their product.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of them do. I've had a whole gun replaced once because it had a malfunction. And they replaced it with the gun that I wanted. I actually upgraded, and they didn't even charge me. I was like, oh, I'm a fan for life now. So. But it's amazing. So we got some new guys on here. Anybody got any questions? We're just going to, basically just a BS session from here for about the next hour or so.
So I need to upgrade to finally get a bait caster.
Mm-hmm.
Using spinning reels, and I don't feel like I'm getting the distance on, especially some like the Carolina rig and stuff. Although I've become pretty efficient keeping the buzzbait on top of the water.
Yeah.
But first, only experience I've had is one of our spin casting reels when I first got my boat. I was in Missouri using old fishing gear, like 50 spin casting reels.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't have any of my stuff, and it broke. The gear stripped out, so I taught myself I'll use a bait caster, cheap old Walmart one my dad had.
Yep.
Minimal backlash in the dark. But what do you think is? I don't want to spend $300 or $400 for a reel, but I don't want to get a cheapy bait caster. What's your recommendation for price point and quality?
I'm going to go ahead. I'll tell you the same thing I tell everybody that asks that question. Get a loose reel.
Yep.
I am not sponsored by them. And they are the best reel at $78 to $100 than you will find anywhere right now.
It's a
You can find them for 50 actually.
Yeah, you can find for 50 in places. The $100 one is the one I really like. I think it's the best value because of what you get out of the reel. It's one of those reels that will last you. If you take care of it and do regular annual maintenance, it will last you years.
I just bought a Abu Garcia, the one that you used in one of your videos. No, it's not a Revo. It was the Black Max.
Yeah.
They've actually, if you want to, I mean, it's my first baitcaster too. I'm in the same boat.
Mm-hmm.
And, I bought it. It was $80 at Dick's Sporting Goods, and they got a $10 off right now, and it's got a $20 mail-in rebate.
Holy cow!
So you get it for like $50, and it's a Black Max, and it comes with the Vengeance rod, which is supposed to be one of their great entry-level rods too. It's a medium-heavy 6'9" pole, and man, I've been wearing that thing out. So you've
been catching fish, Chris?
Yes, I have.
You caught more than just that one?
Yeah, I caught a 2.5 pound bass not long after that one, and I took a river float in my kayak with our kayak group and caught about 5 smallmouth. So
awesome.
Yeah, I mean it was fun. Now I'm waiting for fall to hit because it's been kind of bad around here for summer.
Yeah.
So pretty excited.
Man,
I told everybody about your videos and they've been watching them too. So they're like, we got to learn something.
You guys, Chris is my success story of the year. He came on this the Hangout with us a couple of times ago and had never caught a fish, and me and this older guy that was a part of the Hangout basically coached him, and 2 days later he went out and caught his first bass.
Yep.
So
yep, caught a it's about 2 pound bass, and then not 2 weeks after that I went and I kayak fished, so caught a 2.5 pound there. I was like, see, it's easy now.
Not bad for a legless dude, huh?
That's right, not bad, not bad at all.
Oh goodness, yeah.
I got a question.
Yeah, man.
So I fish in Maryland, and a lot of the ponds around here, they don't really have a whole lot of shape to them. They're round. They don't have a lot of cover.
Yeah.
Or even weeds on the edge, and a lot of them are really muddy. So I have no idea the depth, structure underneath, and I don't have a feel for how you go about finding, like, kind of feeling it out. I don't know how to do that.
This is what I used to do.
Finding the fish.
This is what I used to do on the ponds. I when I was 16, got my driver's license. My dad is a trout fisherman, so I've never bass fished with my dad. And so when I turned 16, I had a public fishing area right down the road, about 20-minute drive from my house. Had 22 little ponds. They weren't natural ponds like what you're talking about. They were all man-made. But I didn't have a depth finder.
Man-made too.
Yeah. Okay. But I didn't have a depth finder, so I wanted to figure out what the depth was. I started fishing a Carolina rig, and with a 1/2 ounce weight, and instead of depth, I counted them down. Okay. I don't want to know how many feet. When I don't have a depth finder, I don't care how many feet. I want to count. I throw it out there. It hits the water. I'm going to count 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 until it hits the bottom. And so I know it's at 10 seconds, or it's at 8 seconds, or it's at 4 seconds. And then
So it's all comparative. It's all relative.
exactly, it's all relative. Exactly. And so when you're dragging, and then when you're dragging it back, you're feeling the bottom. A great thing about a Carolina rig is that weight transfers a whole lot of vibration up that line into your rod. And so I'm feeling, does it feel soft? Did I hit something? Does it feel like a rock? Does it feel like a stick? And the way you learn that is you go to the shallow water and you see a log laying in the water or a rock in the water, and you cast your line across it and close your eyes and drag it across there and see what it feels like and memorize what that feels like. So when you're out there at deeper water that you can't see, you're dragging it and you're feeling, and you're able to pretty much have an educated guess on what you're hitting. And then also learn what it feels like when it's coming downhill and what it feels like when it's coming uphill, so you know what you're doing one way or the other. And it's about educating yourself and getting out there on the water and getting that experience to educate yourself to be able to figure out what's on the bottom. And when you're fishing muddy water, a Carolina rig is not a bad thing. Put a bead up in between the swivel, or in between the Carolina keeper like I use, and the sinker, and it makes a little bit of noise as you're bumping things. Use a short leader, 10 to 12 inches, because that bass hears that rattle of that bead, and he's going to come and investigate. and you're fishing it, and he's going to go for that rat on that bead. But if he gets close to it and sees that bait behind it, he's going to grab it. And use something that has a bait that has things that move, like a lizard or a brush hog or something, a creature bait that has a lot of vibration in it as it moves around. So, and dark colors, black and blue, dark colors. If it's really is, what's your clarity? I mean, if you were to put a bait in there, when would it disappear? Like 2 feet, 1 foot?
I think he dropped off.
Oh, did he drop off?
Were you talking to Ben?
I think I was, yeah.
Yeah, he dropped out. That was at around 8:53.
Okay, so I was just rambling.
I was listening. I retain all information.
I got kicked off.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, so I missed the last little bit, but I'll go back and watch the video later.
I didn't like you anyway, so we're gonna. But
my device is overheating.
Oh, really?
I'm on. Man.
What's your depth? What's your clarity in your water?
It's awful.
This is like 6 inches or a foot. What is it?
Maybe 6 inches.
Okay, yeah. So use dark colored baits and things that vibrate is basically what you missed. So
Carolina rig. The other asked that went along with that was, I see when you're talking about dragging stuff on the bottom, I see you raising your pole up to drag it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand how when you raise your pole up, it moves along the bottom instead of comes up off the bottom. You know what I mean? I don't get that.
There's lines out there.
Yep, sometimes it does come off the bottom, and I lift it up like that if I'm fishing grass, because I want it to come up out of the grass and sink back down into the grass, so the bait comes up off the grass and comes back down. Or if I'm dragging it up like that, I'm bringing it up a hill, or I'm bringing it over something, I'm popping it over something, and if it's coming downhill, I'm dragging it to the side. It's all about I'm going to move that rod according to what I need to do to keep that sinker on the bottom, unless I'm fishing grass, and then I'm yo-yoing it out of the grass, but just barely out of the grass, and bringing it back down. So
if you're not using a Carolina rig though, you're dragging it. Do you need to keep your tip low? If you're going along flat along the bottom, it's fishing like a like a jig.
Well, if I'm fishing a jig, the reason I keep it up like that is because I can feel the slightest bite, and I'm dragging it slow enough to keep it on the bottom. If I'm dragging it, and you'll feel it when you're doing it, you'll feel it as you're dragging. If you drag too fast, you won't feel the bottom anymore. And so I'm dragging it real slow, trying to keep it on the bottom, and then I'm shaking it and popping it. If I want to get it off the bottom, I'll pop it up. But the biggest thing is I'm trying to keep that semi-slack line in between the bait and me, so when a bass hits, I can either see that line jump, or I can feel it on the end of my rod.
That makes sense. I wasn't thinking about that. If you have a tight line, then raising your rod tip up is probably going to bring it right off the bottom. But if you have a little bit of slack, then it's going to move it along. I try to understand the physics of everything I'm doing. So
you're one of those. That's fine.
What's that?
Yeah, I said you're one of those. My dad's like that, so I understand. Yeah, my dad's an engineer, so he wants to know how everything works.
I'm an IT guy, so.
But yeah, it's a feel thing, and you'll get it. And like I said, it's gonna be time on the water. You get out there and do it, you'll get it.
Yeah,
so.
One day I'll get a boat and I can get off the banks,
Yeah, but don't use that as an excuse. Just go fishing.
That's true. I'm out fishing all the time on the banks. So, I mean.
Yeah. I don't know why I'm not seeing my chats. I've been trying to figure out why I'm not seeing them all night. I've got a really bad issue over here. I know I've got tons of them, but I just can't see them. And I'm sorry, guys.
Everybody, Gene does IT too. He did a video on how to.
He
does tech support.
Shut up, Chris.
How to what?
Watch this video.
It's lame. I get, and I hope people are watching this. As I did do one, it was about tech support. It was about Google Plus, because I get a bunch of guys that comment and ask questions.
Oh yeah. I remember that.
Yeah, on my videos, and I can't respond to them because they have their Google settings all jacked up, and so and Google Plus is YouTube, and YouTube is Google Plus, so.
Right, they're like partners now, but
right.
your YouTube comments are disabled right now.
Yeah, and it basically says I can't. So, but my YouTube comments are disabled.
Yeah, I went in there to try a comment.
Yeah, I can't see them. I can see them, but I got something in front of them. I can see like the outside edge of them. So I don't. It's messed up over here, and I'm not going to try to mess them up.
I'm on my way over, Gene.
All right. See you next week. Let's keep talking bass fishing since I'm still recording.
Yeah.
But anybody got any questions? James, you're being quiet. You got any questions? No.
Well, I'm James.
Oh, you are James. Okay. You got that white background in your avatar, and I can't see the little green bars coming up. So
what's best right now for? I mean, I'm in Tennessee, so I know Georgia's warmer, and the further down south that you move up, the slower fall comes along.
Yes.
So right now we're still having where it's in the 80s still here.
Okay.
So do we still treat that as summer right now, or do we? Okay. So the videos and stuff I've seen you do about thermoclines, does those rules still apply as well? Okay.
Yeah, that's one thing I didn't cover was turnover. As that thermocline comes up, as the water temperature cools down, the surface temperatures cool down. The thermocline comes up and everything gets concentrated more and more and more closer to the top, and everything tends to move shallower. So same sort of deal. I'm still going to be throwing a buzzbait in the morning. I'm still going to and as it gets cooler and cooler and cooler, and the thermocline gets closer and closer to the top, I'm going to be concentrating more into the shallow stuff. Excuse me. Into the shallow stuff anyway. But turnover doesn't happen all at the same time on big lakes. Okay, that's one thing you have to understand. But if I come out to the lake and I look and it's like October around here when it happens, or November, what happens is that water temp the colder the surface temperature gets colder than the water that's under the thermocline. Okay. So right now the water under the thermocline is somewhere in the mid-60s, low 60s, and when that surface temperature gets below that water temperature, everything rotates, heat rises, right? And this water below the thermocline is stagnant, nasty, no oxygen, it's just bad water, basically. So it rotates and comes over, and it puts the bass in a funk. And so when I go out to the lake, the sign I look for is bubbles on the water, that foam, and it's not a whole lot of it. There's usually just a little bit here and there, but you get foam on the water if it's a windy day, or it's just bubbles that stay on the water, kind of like somebody threw some soap in there. And I either put the boat in there and go somewhere else, or I turn around and I go to another boat ramp and start looking for water on the lake that doesn't have that. Because like I said, not everything rotates, and not everything turns over at the same time.
Does that apply to rivers as well?
No, because you got current that stirs up the water, keeps that water stirred up. There's no thermocline in a river. Same thing with small lakes. Some lakes will thermocline, some won't. I'm not the biologist, so I don't know what the stipulation is. But deep lakes will thermocline, because they have that depth, and then other ones just get nasty and hot, So
turnover sucks.
Yeah, it really does. And if you can't find a place to fish, go home, because you're wasting your gas money. And it takes 2, 3, 4 days for it to get to where the bass will start eating again or get right, but it's still tough fishing for a little while.
I mean, there's usually one end of the lake you can go to. But...
Yeah, exactly. And I'm going to search around the lake for that spot, and it's just tough. It is what it is.
Would you consider Wheeler to be a? I mean, I don't know. I think Wheeler Lake has a thermocline. You said it doesn't.
I'm pretty sure it does. And I'm not. I need to go fish Tennessee River in the summertime. I know it would have a thermocline, but what would happen if you guys had a lot of rain somewhere along Tennessee River and they just started pumping water through the dam in the summertime? What would happen to that thermocline? I wonder.
Yeah.
And so it makes me think that it might get stirred up, and it would basically there wouldn't be one. So it all depends on current in the Tennessee River.
I feel like that it I don't know. That it shows up on my fish finder often.
Yep. Then you have it.
Yeah.
So, I went looking for it on Clark Hill, and I was like, man, I can't find it. I can't find it. I can't find it. Went out to 60 feet. It was at 45. I'm like, there it is. And I knew I was going to have trouble fishing because I, put the half-ounce weight on the drop shot and start looking for fish on the fish finder. And but I want to do a video about that. I just got to find the right time to do it and find fish that'll cooperate. Where I have the show how to fish a drop shot in deep water on the thermocline with with the one camera on the fish finder and one showing me fishing. How I do it. It's like playing a video game. You see the bass, you drop the drop shot down, you see it go down on your fish finder, you shake it, you see the bass come up to the worm, and then you set the hook.
Window shopping.
Yep, sight fishing at 40 feet deep, man. So it's a lot of fun.
Maybe I got a question.
Yeah, man.
I don't have a boat, right? Or I'm a bank fisherman, right?
Yep.
And I'm thinking about going this weekend to fish this bay, right? And how do you think I should spend my time? Like, where should I spend most of my time in the backs of creeks, or?
Where are you from?
About an hour away from Toronto.
Okay, so we're in Canada. So you're looking at low 50 water temperatures.
It just started about like a few days ago, where the temperature.
Yep, got in the mid 50s. You know what?
I don't think the water is in the 50s. I would still think the water is in the 70s.
Okay, good. I would start. Man, the biggest thing I would do is you've got grass on the bank, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would start with looking for the greenest grass, the grass that's creating all the oxygen has and you'll find most of the life in that green grass. So don't be afraid to pull some up and look at it. And 20 or 30 casts should be able to tell you kind of what you're looking for. Whether it's going to be browning or starting to brown, or if it's starting to brown, they're not going to be around it. If it's green, they're going to be in it. And I would cover water quick until I got bit. So 4 or 5 casts at one spot and go find the next spot. 4 or 5 casts. Do your fan casts. I showed on that bank fishing 101 video I did. Your fan cast. Start. Make a cast before you get to the water, so you don't spook fish that are right there where you're going to be standing. Then make a cast to the left all the way along the bank, cast to the right all the way along the bank, and then work your way out like this. And fishing a couple of different baits. You probably carry 3 rods with you, 2 rods with you?
Oh, about like 2, yeah.
Yeah, and so a couple of different baits, one that fishes slow and one that fishes fast. But don't sit there and stand at one spot and say, oh man, I'm not getting bit, let me keep fishing and try. If you're not getting bit in that spot, go find another one. Keep moving until you figure out whether they're in the back or at the mouth of that bay.
I bought this new this KVD crankbait. It's like this bluegill pattern, right? And I don't know if it's just KVDs, but it's probably not. It's probably like a bunch of other crankbaits. When I used to think floating crankbaits were like in the water, like when they're about submerged, maybe 2-3 feet, they would slowly begin to rise, right? But with KVDs, they rise in like 3-4 seconds.
Yeah, it's probably. Is it a square bill?
Yeah. I think so, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Square bills are designed, you're fishing cover with it, and they float pretty fast because what happens is you want to, I love square bills in wood and things like that, so when you bump a piece of wood, you don't want it to sink, you want it to bump and sink off that wood so you can keep fishing it. And so square bills typically, and especially, that's why I fish a lot of balsa wood crankbaits and stuff like that, they got high buoyancy. Bump and it floats, and it's just the way it's designed. It's not a defective bait, but they don't suspend, and they're not designed to sit still for very long. You bump it, you stop it, you keep reeling. Bump it, stop it, keep reeling. So it's just the way it's done. So.
Have you ever fished with the Storm square bill?
No.
You don't like them?
No, I just haven't fished with them. I haven't fished with Storms in years since the original Wiggle Warts. So.
Yeah, I actually just bought 2 Wiggle Warts. Never fished with them. They had them at Academy.
Yeah. I gotta find my boss up in North Carolina just put a dang message on my chat, and I can't find the chat. Dadgummit. Sorry, Jim.
Hey, are you talking about the Arashi
Yeah.
with the circuit board lip and then
Yeah.
like the okay. Yeah, I just bought I think 3 of those the other day from Academy too, and I fish with them so far, and I like them. I've caught some fish on them. They sort of, to me, they sort of look like in the water. They look like they swim more like a lipless crankbait than they do a square bill, and it's kind of weird. And that may just be because of the way the lip is, and or maybe the how they have the adjustable line tie thing.
Right.
But yeah, I think that's just why. That's one of the things I think that makes them different. I don't know. I don't have enough experience with them so far to give any opinion on them. But so far as I've been fishing them, I kind of like them.
Yeah, same here. The reason I bought them because I was at work and I started watching that stupid TV they have up there above them, and I was like, man, those things look cool. So
Yeah, that's how they hooked me too.
I got sold.
And, who's that? Brandon Poliniuk, is it? Who's that? Yeah, I'm sorry, Poliniuk. Is that him? Who's sponsored by Storm?
I don't know.
I don't pay attention to who they're sponsored by.
It's one of the pros who are like really, and it was like a whole big commercial that I watched online, and it just kind of hooked me. And I just said I'll buy 3 and see if I like them. And if I don't like them, I won't buy any more. But they're kind of expensive for square bills.
They are expensive, but anyway, I get a discount. But I bought those wiggle warts because they were on clearance at Academy, and they were only like $1. So, and they look nice. So I'll check them out tomorrow.
Cool. Sorry, I'm working on some technical stuff real quick. James says he can't hear anymore, and I don't know what. I think it just dumped him. But
Thanks, Gene. You're not even paying attention.
yeah, I know it. Bass Assassin usually takes over about right now anyway. So. Oh goodness. Anyway, I'm gonna probably run this for about another 15 minutes and then end the live part of it, or the broadcasting part of it, where I'm recording it, and then we'll do my favorite time, which is the BS talk after it.
The aftermath.
Yeah, a 3-hour marathon of let's just have fun chatting.
How long would you leave Power Pro on a bait caster?
I would. Goodness gracious! Until it starts to fray really bad and start to look ugly, then.
So it turning white does not mean nothing.
No, I'll take a Sharpie and run a Sharpie. Oh, come on now, I'm cheap, you guys. Take a Sharpie and run a Sharpie over top of it, turn that sucker black, and go back to fishing. And I only do the last 5 feet of it when that happens.
Yeah.
Why does that matter? Fish can see the parade anyway. Why does it matter?
Exactly. It's all up here. But and then what you do when it wears out, you take your braid and you tie it to something like a stick or tree or something. Walk it all the way out, cut it off, go back to the tree, tie that end onto your reel, and reel it back in. And so you have that whole brand new other end of the line that was in the reel.
Yeah.
Now on the other end, now on the business end of the line, and you can use it for another year or 2 or 3. So.
And Gene, what I found is that because I do that all the time, I just reduce, reuse, and recycle my line basically. And I did that, and I found that usually it has something to do with the compression of the line, like when you like maybe when you get hung and it just like compresses the line, but sometimes it makes the line smoother. And I find that especially with mono and fluorocarbon. I don't know about as much as braid, but for some reason I don't know. I want to say I have a lot of experience fishing with line, and I go through a lot of lines, so I just found that for some reason if you fish that for a while and then you flip that line over, it makes the line a little bit smoother and easier to cast.
Oh, cool. Hadn't heard that. And I hope you have experience fishing with line. Sorry, had to say it. No noodling with you for you, huh?
I might as well go. I just got JJ's Magic all over my hands.
Oh yeah, I've got it in my
So,
Yeah, it's bad now in my room.
speaking of JJ's Magic, I got my first bottle, and after about a day, the cap just started leaking. I had to throw the whole bottle out.
What did you have it laying on its side?
Yeah, that's what
No,
happened to me.
just had it in a Tupperware in my thing. I don't know.
What happens, and I'll tell you what happens because I do it all the time, is I leave it in my boat, or I forget to bring it into the garage, and it's that temperature change, and it's, man, that's why I keep it in the Tupperware, is because
It kind of sucks though, because it ruined the whole bottle, and I got it on my boat.
Yeah, it does. It does. And it's that it gets really hot, and that's the only chemical that they can find, and I don't know what it's called. He won't tell me, and I don't want to know. But it's the only chemical you can find that it's not flammable. It's not petroleum based, but it softens that plastic enough to allow that garlic oil and the dye to penetrate completely, and so
bought some Mega Strike after that. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what works better, to be honest, because
it's up here.
Yeah.
It's all in confidence. I have the utmost confidence in JJ's because it has saved my butt a lot, and it works. It does work, and Mega Strike works. I've used a lot of stuff that does not work, or doesn't work nearly as good as that stuff. You know, I've compared that to JJ's and all this, and
yeah, honestly, I just think of it as something that masks any human scent. Not really.
I think it has a lot to do with that. No, and I said this in the last hangout that years ago, I want to say it was in the late '80s. I read an old article in the Bassmaster magazine or some fishing magazine where they took several different scents and put them in a tank with some bass, and they found that the bass were more interested in
Salt.
the garlic.
Oh, okay.
The garlic.
I saw something on that on Bass Resource.
Yeah, and it was kind of interesting. I wish I could go back and find that article because why I remember reading it, I have no clue because I was a teenager back then and didn't really care. So, but I was a trout fisherman back until I was 16. But yeah, JJ's, you just have to keep it cool, and that's the trick. And it's worth the trouble. If you,
I guess I'll put it in a cooler.
If there's money online, I do. I keep a little igloo, one of those little tiny igloo coolers, and that's why I keep it in my garage. Is I put it in that little cooler and close it up, so the temperature doesn't change very drastically, and plus it keeps the bottles upright, And so if those bottles are laying on their side just a little bit, that stuff leaks right out the bottle. It's going to evaporate, and the more temperature fluctuation you have, the faster it evaporates. I've had bottles in my garage for 4 years, and they have not evaporated. But I've had them in my boat for 3 months, and they've evaporated because of that temperature change. So.
Okay, so like I'm keeping mine in like this Plano box right now, and like when I go bank fishing, I just kind of stick it in my book bag like this. So it's obviously on its side, and like I don't know if you can see this through the camera. But you see how like I had the chartreuse kind of bleed through a little bit.
Yep.
And I guess you're saying that's because it's on its side, and I just picked it up and it's all over my hands. But
smells good, doesn't it?
Yeah, I love the. I actually kind of like the smell. It just until you get the red, may have a little bit more of a burning sensation. But yeah, I guess I should start. Oh God, I guess I should start keeping this a little bit different now. I'm gonna
try to keep it upright
somewhere else right now. Oh man, as a matter of fact, let me go wash my hands.
Welcome to Comedy Central. See you in a minute.
Where the laughs are free.
That's right. Yeah, JJ's.
I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
No, you can go.
Oh, but JJ's is just, it's one of those things where you've got to, it's up to you whether you want to use it or not. And it takes a little bit more work than a lot of people are willing to do to handle the stuff. And it's not.
Yeah, you got to get it out, open the bag, open it.
It's not going to explode. Everybody says, oh, it explodes. No, it doesn't. Dynamite explodes. But JJ's just.
It fizzes. It doesn't explode.
That's right. It's just like opening up a Coke bottle. If you shake it up and open it up, what happens? So you just got to open it slow and be real, real careful with it. So anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, so back to cold fronts. I know you briefly mentioned it.
Yep.
Down here in Georgia, there's a pretty, I guess you could say, major cold front this weekend, and I think it's getting down in like the 70s is in the high, the 78 this Sunday. That's when I'm going out. Like all these like, just linear Hartwell, all those like clear Georgia lakes.
Yep.
It generally like since it's so hot, it's not really fall yet. It like pushes them shallower on the points, right, and humps like makes them roam more.
Right. To me, well, you're gonna be fishing linear, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. To me, it tends to push the bait fish up into the shallows. Like early in the morning, I'm going to throw something right on the bank and reel it off into the water.
Oh yeah, that's last trip early in the morning. I just ran like a 3XD on points, like in like the 10-foot range, and that was like literally caught like 15 spotted bass in an hour.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And so that's and the thing I've found about cold fronts is they move out of the shallows slower. They still move out, and they still go down, and they still hang around wherever they want to hang around during the day, to the middle of the day. But it takes them a little bit longer to get out there, so expect that shallow bite to last longer. And then and then I love sunny days.
They probably won't be as
right. But if it gets sunny, then
they won't be as tight to the brush.
Right, exactly. They may be in a little bit shallower brush. They won't get into that 20 and 30 and 40-foot brush like they have been in the last couple of weeks.
Right.
So they may.
And I'm guessing instead of like it's more of a fan casting type thing and covering water rather than sitting on. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Same sort of deal until you get bit. So. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yep. All right, guys. Any more questions? I'm gonna close this out. If not.
Well, I got a question. It's not very serious.
Yeah, Alex, go ahead.
So you say you like sunnier days better than shady days, I guess.
I'm the opposite.
Overcast.
Yep.
Yeah, so am I. Why do you like sunny days?
Because it will cause the bass to get into predictable places, and so it will like Emil said, it concentrates them down into the grass, into the shade, under trees. It just gives me something to look for. They'll get under docks. They'll get further under docks and things like that. But when there's cloud cover, they'll scatter more. And so you've got to. And I like to throw jigs. I like to throw Texas rigs. I like to throw things that are for pinpoint casting into spots more than I like to throw a spinnerbait or a crankbait and things like that. So it dictates how I'm going to fish. Mm-hmm. And I love to throw topwater, so I don't mind a cloudy day, but I would prefer being able to say, okay, it's sunny, there's a dock, it's a deep dock, it's got grass running up against it, there's got to be a fish right there, that kind of stuff. That's
well,
when
for you, sunny weather probably does mean topwater.
Right. Well, yeah, because the bluebacks, but that changes the whole world. But that's when I really feel like I know what I'm doing, is when it's on those sunny days when you can see a spot and say there's got to be a fish there. You pitch in and you get hammered, And so that's why I like sunny days over cloudy days.
I'll be honest. I've tried fishing docks on linear in like the late summer here, and they're just not on them. I don't know if it's because they're not deep enough, but. I've caught fish on docks, it's really good in like the early spring, but like in the late summer, they just aren't on them for me. I don't know.
Yeah, they're because you have blueback herring.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and
if they are, it's like extremely random.
Right. Yeah, it's not. There's no pattern at all on a blueback herring lake. You basically just have to fish until you find the fish. Because those blueback herring are nomadic. They're out deep in the middle of the lake, and you've got to go fish offshore structure to find fish.
Another question I do have, real quick.
Yep.
I was on my last trip. I was out and I was just fishing like a really long point, and there was like fish. They'd like sporadically school on the point, like maybe not something where you could like have time to go over and catch the schooling fish because it'd be random for like 3 seconds. And I was just like fan casting a swim bait, like a pretty big swim bait. It's called the I don't know, bite-sized herring. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but
Yep.
I was fan casting that and. Like 3 times I got followers from spotted bass, like wolf packs, and they were really big. And one time I just kept burning it, didn't get a hit. Another time I killed it, and they just turned around and like, you think it's because it's too big or?
Usually, if
It's
I
like
tried,
they'll like follow it all the way up and then they'll just spook.
what color was it?
This is a herring color.
It was a herring color. Was it a clear bait or was it painted fully?
Do you know that it's the swarming hornet, bite-sized herring? It's painted fully.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Okay, what I would typically do is change colors because I've tried to kill it. I've tried. Well, one thing. No. Let's do this. If you ever see them do that, you want to kill it before you see the bait. In other words, if they're continually following, start killing it just before you see the bait, and you'll tend to get bit more. What happens when a fish swims up and sees your boat? He stops, he turns around, and he swims away, right?
Yep. Well, it'll actually happen not far from the boat, maybe like 15 feet away.
Right, and so as you're swimming it up, do that with your bait. Stop, and the bass that are following it haven't seen your boat yet. So
you're saying like think that there's a fish following it.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Every single cast, bring it back, stop it just before you see it or just as you see it, and the bass haven't seen your boat yet, and you know.
And then at the same time, sometimes they'd keep hitting it and they'd miss it, but I don't know.
And then my other thing is I'll change to a clearer bait because they're evidently getting too good of a look at your bait, and they're swimming away. And so I'll go to something really clear. That's why I love that Super Spook Junior clear one, and I fish a lot of baits where I buy them.
It's kind of hard to find a clear, hard-bodied swim bait when you think about it.
Yes, it is. Yep. So something else that's clear. I wish
I'm guessing it doesn't make a difference if you're using a bull herring or a bull shad or a bite-sized herring or whatever.
Right. I don't think it may have something to do with size. Switch baits, change around. A lot of baits like the bull shad and although I don't like the maker because, well, anyway, I won't go to that. The high power herring, when you stop it, it turns around. You
don't like Mike Buka?
No, Mike Buka is my friend. I'm talking about the guy that makes the high powered herring. We're not going there. Yeah, big rift between me and him. It gets into a high school soap opera stuff. The stuff I don't really like to talk about. It's a long story. We won't do it online. Anyway, so. But any one of those baits, if you have a swim bait that you're swimming in and when you kill it, it turns around, it's a great bait for that kind of stuff. Or if it walks really good. It could be a number of things. But what I typically do is
just kill it, or do you do like a directional change?
It changes on its own as soon as you stop reeling. It'll drift off to one side, or it'll drift all the way around and look at the back at the fish. So, just play around. That's all I can say. But the thing I do is, if it doesn't work when I kill it, doesn't work when I speed it up, I will go to a different color first or a different size. So.
Okay.
All right.
How's the bite on Clark's Hill?
Horrible.
Dang.
As soon as that sun hits the water, it's done. So.
I read a report this month just because I follow GON every month. And it said that there was good numbers of fish in 20 to 30 feet on humps points.
Yeah, there was. There was until the grass started dying off down there. So, and then the bass that were down.
Deep on that lake?
Well, it's the old water line, or when the lake was low.
Down.
Yeah,
okay.
That's where the roots from the hydrilla actually grew, or where they stayed. And so when it started growing again, that's what happened. So. But they're not there anymore. They're scattered, and we're catching them on buzz baits in the morning, and that's it. And there's only certain sections of the lake that have the bait fish to hold bass. So.
Are there any other lakes you want to go to that are
not right now. I tried to go to Jackson the other day, and it was worse than Clark Hill. So. But
all right.
Spent all day there and didn't catch anything. Or I caught one. But
it's 90% of your videos are on that lake, right?
Right now on Clark Hill, yeah, because it's right up the road, real quick and easy to go do it. If I can teach it on Clark Hill, I'll go there just to save me money on gas. But if I've got a punching video or something like that, I've got to go to a lake that has that kind of stuff. Then I'll have to plan and save money for gas and go up and do it. So. That's cool. Yes, sir.
Can Daniel tell you, hey? My son is right here.
Hold on, I'm looking for you. Where? Oh, what was your son's name again? I forgot.
Daniel.
Who now?
Daniel.
Oh, Daniel.
Yeah.
There he is. I see him. Hold on, let me pop him up so you can see that. Hey, Daniel, how are you, man?
Good. I want to tell you something.
Yeah.
I want a picture of Bill Dad with you.
Oh, really?
They send the picture of you and Bill Dance at the game.
Oh, my selfie with Bill Dance?
Picture of y'all.
Oh, goodness. Paul, I'm so glad you got on, man. I was hoping that you'd be able to get on. Thanks, Daniel. You're awesome, dude.
He was watching you today, and then he went in the. We got Bill Dance recorded for him to watch him. Bill Dance. And it was back and forth between you and Bill, and then I showed him the picture of you and Bill Dance. And
yeah.
he said, Daddy, I want a picture of Gene with Bill. All right, tell him you'll talk to him later.
Hey.
All right, bye, Daniel. Good talking to you.
I'm going to go get the weekend.
Yeah, tell him you'll talk to him later.
I'll talk to you later.
Later, man.
All right, let me say. Hey, Gene, I know you can say this real quick, and I'm going to get off here. I got to give him his medicine.
Okay.
Do that bait challenge with the tackle box. Can you see what this is?
What is that?
Are you ready to see what's in this?
South Bend Bait Company. All right, what is it?
It's never been in the water.
What in the world is that? Holy cow.
Can anybody else see?
A floater.
Can everybody else see that?
Yeah.
I can't see the camera. It may just be
It was
me.
made in 1960 something.
It's an old, looks like an old head.
Stuff water.
Yeah. Yeah, going in or something.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Something my friend.
Man, I wouldn't let that thing touch the water right now, as old as that thing is.
I looked up and got this thing from a old man, and it never, the box and the paperwork with it and everything, and he said he never got it in the water, and I said, well, I'm going to keep it. I'm going to put that thing up, and I was just thinking about you always doing that mystery tackle box. I said, I wonder.
I wouldn't. Nope. If I got that thing in a mystery tackle box, I wouldn't touch it. I'd put it back in, and I would never fish it. That is awesome.
Hey guys, I want to thank y'all for letting my son jump in front of everybody. And let me tell Gene, he's been wanting to do this for weeks now.
Yeah, we've been trying to do this for over a month and a half. So.
He loves Gene and Bill Dance. That's what keeps him busy all day long. And him giving me a hard time why can't I catch big fish like y'all guys do. But I told him it's going to happen.
That's awesome, Paul. I was hoping you'd get on tonight. I didn't even think about setting it up with you, but I'm glad you did.
I appreciate it. I'm going to get off here so I can give him his medicine, and I'll see you later, bud.
Cool, brother. Take care.
You too.
Thanks, guys. That was awesome. Yeah, Paul's been his son's a big fan of mine. That's pretty cool. Pretty dang cool. I have to get up there and go fishing with them one day. But anyway, everybody that's on, just kind of stay on. I'm going to close this video out, and we'll just kind of hang out and talk. So I'm getting close to about an hour and a half, and that's about all I want to run it anyway. So, well, like I always say, visit bassresource.com for the answer to all your questions about bass fishing. Get out in the water. Go try the stuff that you've learned on this video. More importantly, take somebody else fishing. Introduce people to fishing. It's become an absolute passion of mine. This whole YouTube thing that I do has been a whole lot of fun. But subscribe to my channel. Hit the like button. Share my videos on all your social media sites. All those other little things. But most importantly, get out on the water and have fun.